Well, g'day folks, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to Greece, welcome back to the 100 days of vlogs, and a bit of a talky vlog today. I mentioned in our little Sunday update just past that one of the vlogs that I wanted to kind of put out there this week was about the fear of missing out. Before we get too far into this particular subject, I am of course acutely aware that what I'm going to be talking about does make me sound like a bit of a ungrateful or selfish so-and-so. But nonetheless, it is something that I do suffer from, like I'm sure quite a lot of people do. And so I just really wanted to spend a few minutes talking about it. Where this actually kind of came from was I was reading National Geographic on the iPad. By the way, I was only made aware a couple of years ago that I knew digital libraries existed and you could sort of subscribe to or get sort of loan out books digitally on your iPad. But I didn't realise that you also had access to so many magazines as well. Really good for being on the road. And I was reading an article about a walking path, a pilgrimage path in Japan. And as I read it and looked at the pictures and then did a bit more research about it online, I was kind of like, oh, wouldn't that be fantastic to do? They say it takes about 60 days or so to complete it. I was like, wouldn't that be fantastic to do? I myself have done one long distance walking path, the West Highland Way, loved it. And yeah, I was just sort of reading it going, wouldn't it be great just to drop everything and go off and do that particular walking path through Japan? Me just dropping everything and running off to walk a long distance pilgrimage path in Japan. Well, where would that leave Nicola? Where would that leave our van life plans, our plans for the rest of the year? And associated with the fear of missing out is also another sort of thought that's been rattling about in the old grey matter, chasing happiness. And is it possible to be truly, truly happy without being in some way a little bit selfish as well? I don't have the answers to a lot of these questions, and you may have completely different opinions to my own, which is what makes the world an interesting place. But just some of the things that I've taken a note of here, some of the things that I would love, if I wasn't doing traveling in the van with Nicola, just some of the things that I would love to, attempt to do. So there's obviously the long distance walking paths. I'd love to do the Camino. Maybe another one, sort of maybe the Taronga. You know me and my pronunciation. In New Zealand, plenty of walking paths in England, the Southwest Coast Path for one. Spend a year just doing a bunch of long distance walking paths, not least being able to eat what you want as you burn off the miles. Similar vein, bike packing. Now, I've only ever done bike packing once with a good buddy, Alistair. I did discover that bike packing actually equates to bike carrying a lot of the time. At least that was the case in Scotland, but that was fantastic. And I really loved rolling onto the ferry with the on the bike. It was a really good experience, something that I'd love to do with Nicola, actually. So yeah, a bit of bike packing for maybe 6 months or so. Obviously, the life we're leading at the moment does make it a little bit, not impossible of course, but a little bit more challenging to spend quality time with friends and family. And it'd be great if you could just click your fingers and have a quick weekend back with friends and family. Especially this past weekend was the Northwest 200 motorbike race in Northern Ireland. And this time last year, we were actually back in between our sort of Southern Europe and Northern Europe trips. So that was really good. But this time we're probably not going to make it back for a good few months, but it'd be great just to click the fingers and head back. I'm not sure I've spoken about this too many times on the channel, but I had the idea and the thought whenever I left Schlumberger, my sort of first career job, to be a full-time photographer, and unfortunately that didn't work out. And I would love to spend a year just dedicated, not necessarily from a professional point of view, i.e. from a money-making perspective, although that would be most welcome, but 100% just dedicated morning and night to the pursuit of photography, the pursuit of creativity. Maybe have a little studio and just have 100% of my time dedicated towards that. I'd love to be a drummer in a band, and if I joined a band, I'd like the lead singer to be called Johnny, so we could be called Johnny Whiplash and the Handcuffs, but that's a whole different story. But yeah, drummer in a band. I did take up drums many moons ago, loved it. And then when we moved into the flat, I thought it would be wise to get rid of the drum kit, because I'm sure our neighbours didn't want to hear me knocking 7 hell bells out of the drums. But yeah, be a drummer in a band. Now, we've spoken about this on separate occasions on this channel. At some point, we hope to hang up the van keys and grab our backpacks and go backpacking. Just being able to say, you know what, next week, 6 months backpacking throughout Asia, 6 months backpacking throughout India, South America. And it is something that we have discussed, putting the van in storage for a few months and heading off backpacking. But that would make it very difficult from both of our jobs' perspectives. So I think for now it's the van travel rather than the backpacking. I'd love to spend a season, a year, 6 months, whatever, volunteering at an animal shelter or volunteering in some way with animals. And it is again something that we have spoken about. But of course right now with our travels, it's not something that we can do. We can do little bits as we did with the old fella in the camping area the other day. But to actually have some dedicated time working with animals. We've done a little bit of house sitting, pet sitting over the last 18 months. But it would be fantastic to piece together a whole year of house sitting around the world. So go from house to house, from pet sit to pet sit, seeing the world, but actually staying not necessarily in the van, even flying between places. I know pet sitting is a huge thing over in America as well. So spend a year pet sitting. Back about 10 years ago, I took up running and very quickly found myself running or maybe shuffling into the longer distances. My longest being the 69-mile wall run, Hadrian's Wall between Carlisle and Newcastle. Did a couple of 50Ks and obviously done a bunch of marathons as well. I would love to dedicate a year of my life to training for a 100-mile race. Now that's no mean feat, and that's why I would need to take a year of just nothing but training for the ultra. We both have an ongoing love affair with Scotland, and I've stayed in a couple of bothies. I would love to spend 6 months or a year visiting every single bothy in Scotland with an overnight stay perhaps. For those of you maybe not from the UK, the bothies are little sort of mountain huts that are maintained and run on a volunteer basis. They're free to stay in. They're mainly used for shelters, but I know a lot of people do sort of use them as a bit of a trip away for the weekend. Saves having to stay out in a tent, which can help in the midge season. There is actually a bothy Bible out there. I actually have it digitally as well. And I'll show you an overview of all the bothies, and so it sort of plants a little seed in your head and you think, oh, wouldn't it be great to visit all of those? Staying on the Scotland theme, and this is something that again, we have spoken about at some point. We'll maybe end up living in Scotland, and I'd love to run between all of the distilleries in Scotland while using all of the Calmac routes as well. So combine some kind of Calmac stroke distillery challenge. And again, it would probably take about 4 months or so, I'm sure, to do. Not running too many miles each day, and making sure that I get onto all of the Calmac routes as well. Calmac being the ferry operator that operates in Scotland and around the Scottish Islands. Visiting all the distilleries though. Oh. Speaking of which, when we are back in the UK, me and a good buddy Alistair, guy who I actually did a bit of running with back in the day, he lives up in the Isle of Arran, an island that we've actually both run around. We're going to take a wee trip over to Islay, which has got, I don't know how many distilleries it has, but some of my favourite, very peaty, very smoky whiskies. So we're going to spend 3 or 4 days in the van touring around Islay, and I'm sure I'll put a vlog out later in the year on that. On that Scottish theme, climb all the Munros in Scotland as well. And again, that's no mean feat. It's probably, again, it would take well over a year to sort of complete, even if you were climbing a couple of Munros every week. So they're just some of the things that I would love to split my mind up into 15 different areas, and each go off and do one of those. Of course, some of them, it's going to take a year or more to do, and so very good chance that many of these will never be done. And I'm sure there's people out there now saying, well, combine a bunch of them together, and absolutely you could. But things like the photography, things like training for the ultramarathon, I think that's where the selfish aspect of it comes in. Because for me to say, right, I'm going to go off and do a challenge for climbing all of the Munros, or I'm going to train to run a 100-mile race, that does have an impact on Nicola, I'm sure, because I'm off doing something else for a year, just focused on that. If I was to pick up the camera professionally again and really try to make it go of the photography business, again, being selfish with my time. And that's where my thought, is it possible to be truly, truly happy without being a little bit selfish? And of course, I'm sure it is. But then again, the people who reach the top of their game, I'm sure they'll all say that it's a very selfish pursuit, very selfish gains. And I think I've spoken about this on the channel, I will be. We're sitting here in Greece having a fantastic time. And I'll see someone on a bike with their panniers loaded up. And I'll be like, oh man, I'd love to be off bike packing. And that's what I mean. This is very much a selfish kind of ramble, I guess. Because there's a lot of people out there who aren't getting this opportunity to travel in a van and work while we're on the road. But I still have those little fears of missing out, life being short and all that. That's all I really wanted to talk about today as part of these 100 days of vlogs. As I say, completely my own. And again, it's probably going to sound, as I edit this back, ready for upload, it's going to make me sound really, really ungrateful. And I'm not. I'm completely aware of the privilege that we have to be able to do this while also working on the road, and also to be able to do this with Nicola. We were speaking yesterday, with it being our wedding anniversary. We're getting to spend some incredible quality time together. And I liken it to the years when we moved over from England to Ireland, 5-6 years of quality time with Guinness, our beloved Moggy. And I wouldn't change that for the world. Instead of us being out, working, we were able to sort of have those quality time with her. Of course, she travelled with us in the van for a couple of years as well. Not comparing Nicola to a cat, of course, but and so the fact that we're able to spend this quality time together, we're not out working individual separate jobs and maybe only snatching a couple of hours at the weekend. That's not lost on us. We're absolutely so grateful for being able to do that. But I think if I was doing this by myself, I could see myself switching modes pretty quickly, quite often, and almost at a drop of a hat. So I'm here in Greece right now. Right, next month I'm going to go and backpack around India. Right, the following month I'm going to take the van back to Scotland and I'm going to climb 50 Munros over the course of the next couple of months. Right, I'm going to stop that now, and instead I'm going to completely 100% dedicate myself towards photography. And that's all fair and well when you're by yourself, but not really possible or indeed fair when you're traveling as a couple. The fear of missing out. I'd be interested to hear in the comments if anyone else has similar thoughts or similar views, and maybe how you approach those. For now though, we're going to enjoy #Vanlife. Well, actually it's really just #life. The good and the bad. Continue to explore Greece and further afield as the year progresses, and be thankful for the opportunity that we have to do this. The fear of missing out. Right guys, well, once again, thanks a lot for following along, and from the 100-day project. I think we're getting close to day 90 maybe, but who knows. We shall catch up mañana.